today is talking about how do we drive herd improvement on farm. And the three key areas I really want to touch on today is just give you an overview of the industry gains that have been made over the past decades, cover off the four key components of herd improvement, and then look at the levers for actually driving herd improvement on farm and how you can actually influence this yourself. So getting straight into it, this is information from the latest New Zealand dairy statistics, so the 1920 version. And it shows over time from 1990 through to 2020, the increasing production per cow that's actually being observed. So if we sort of just go through this, in the early 1990s, the average cow was only producing 259 kilograms of milk solids. And then as we progress through the decades, slowly but surely, they have been increasing. And now, on average, our cows are producing 385 kilograms of milk solids. So you can really see that over the decades, cows today are producing well over 100 kilograms of milk solids more than what they did previously. And as a particularly as a trend, you're looking at about 5 kilograms of milk solids per cow per year that the industry is traveling at. Now, this is really good to see. So our cows are a lot more efficient and producing better. But what really drives it home to me is that these cows that are producing haven't actually really changed much in the way of live weight. So this really shows the efficiency that our cows are improving. And this is really important as we drive further and further into the industry in terms of being able to convert what we have on our pastures, on our land, to more milk solids. But over the decades, not only are cows actually producing more, farmers have actually had the privilege too of actually increasing cow numbers. So there's been a double whammy in terms of productivity and profitability on farm. So farms are getting bigger. So back in the 1990s, early 1990s, the average herd size was only about 180 cows. And now with the latest dairy stats, you're looking at 440 is the average herd size. So leading up to 2015, over that period, the cow population was increasing 100,000 animals per year. So farmers were really getting the benefit of increasing cow numbers, but also improved productivity. But in the last 5 years, that cow population has stabilised. If anything, in the future, cow numbers are needing to be reducing, as explained in the climate change report in terms of where the industry wants to head. So it's really important now more than ever that we ensure that we have the best cows on our farms, the most efficient, so that we can still drive productivity and profitability for the farmers and our industry. So I thought I'd just show this because it's come from the Dairy Business of the Year website, and it talks about the importance of understanding KPIs. And this is going to be really important going forward. And the key one here is milk production per cow. So this defines the level of efficiency being achieved from the milking herd. It is important to factor in the size of the cow because we know the bigger the cow, the more maintenance costs that she's going to incur. So therefore, measuring milk solids as a percentage of live weight is the most accurate and comparable efficiency measure. And when you think about the graphic that I showed before in terms of our cows in the early 90s only producing around 250 kilograms of milk solids, as a percentage of live weight back then, it was only 55%. But the cows that are producing today, maintaining live weight at the same level, are actually producing now at 83% of their mature live weight. And we know on farm that there's a lot of targets around there, depending on how much feed's been put into the enterprise, of around 1 kilogram of milk solids per kilogram of live weight. So it's really important that we have this focus and we actually have cows that are doing that. And every single one of our farmers out there, every single one of our herds, there will be cows that are producing at that level, if not better already. So how do we get more of those animals in our herds? So the spotlight on cow quality has really come into light now. And so this is something that was presented in the LIC Roadshow a few years back, where we looked at the difference between the top quartile in terms of milk solids within a herd and the bottom quartile. And across the national population, we identify that the differential between the bottom performers and the top performers was around 160 kilograms of milk solids. Now, this is on average. Some of the farms I've seen out there, that variation, that difference is getting up to the high 200s, 300, if not 300. But the key thing to understand there is that if you've got variation, you have choice in terms of being able to make better genetic gain. And if you actually put it into monetary terms, if you think of that 160 kilogram milk solids difference across the average herd size of 440, so we're just looking at a quarter of the herd, so that's 110 cows, that equates to just over 17,000 kilograms of milk solids. And at a payout of $7, you can see the differential between your bottom performers and your top performers could end up being over $120,000. And that's just in one season. So if you think of cows over lasting 4 or 5 lactations, you know, that soon accumulates. So it's really important, again, we've got opportunity to drive herd improvement through targeting these elite cows in our herds. So I've talked about milk solids and the drive that we've got in terms of productivity over the last decades. I also want to bring it back to the genetic component. So this was presented in the Dairy NZ Inside Dairy publication from February 2017, and it shows you the value of genetic improvement. So back in 2016-17, the rate of genetic gain was about 11 BW per cow per year, and that equates to the $11 profit that's seen in this image. Now, across average herd size of, at that time, of 419 cows, you know, over an enterprise on farm, that equates to just over $4,500. And again, this is just within one season. Now, the key thing about genetics is that it compounds over time. It's not something that you invest in now and you only see it happening in one generation. It actually compounds as you get further generations coming through from the breeding that you've done of today. So if we looked over a 10-year period, quite quickly you can see how the numbers add up. And over a 10-year period, you're looking at $250,000 per herd from genetic improvement at a BW of, let's just say 10 to keep it round figures. And across the industry, genetic improvement is estimated to bring in $3 million across the industry over that 10-year period. So it really is an important aspect. And as I just said, just want to re-emphasize the fact that genetic gain is cumulative and permanent. So what we say by that, what we mean by that is that the cows, the replacements that are coming in the herd this year, they will stay in the herd for multiple years. Not only will we see their improvement being expressed across those years, the breeding from those animals will also see greater rates of genetic gain. So generally, rule of thumb, the gains that you see in one line of replacements, that gain doubles over multiple generations. So as you get replacements coming through from those next line of animals, you will see that doubling. So that's where we talk about it being permanent because it stays in the herd, but cumulative because it's expressed in the future generations as well. And the key thing is understanding that the decisions you make in 1 year have medium to long-term benefits. So we shouldn't be, as an industry, short-sighted with our breeding decisions and then, you know, and the replacements that we have coming in because they have a lot of value on farm. So what is herd improvement? So in short, it is an incremental process in which each generation builds upon the progress made in the previous generations. And this is high level, so it doesn't matter what your breeding goals are, as long as you're improving on those with each line of replacements coming through. So herd improvement, it's about breeding replacements that are able to efficiently produce milk solids, which drives profitability on farm. The key thing here is around efficiency, and that feeds nicely into our national breeding objective, which is specifically around breeding more efficient replacements. So it's breeding and selecting animals that are genetically better than the previous year's crop. So the current national rate of genetic gain is 10 BW per cow per year. And that equates to about 2.7 kilograms of milk solids per cow per year. So if you keep doing what you're doing, then those are sorts of levels that you should be able to achieve, but there's an opportunity to achieve a lot more. And most importantly, it's about identifying the cows that perform well under your management system and breeding more of them. We appreciate that there's varying management systems, varying environments out there. And so from a farmer's perspective, it's around what is working for you in your system. Cows for irrigated plains is going to be potentially could be quite different than cows in the high country and hilly land. So it's around identifying the animals that work well in your system. So pretty much those are just the three principles in terms of herd improvement. But how can we achieve this? So we have this image, and some of you may have seen this before through agri-managers, but we define herd improvement into 4 areas. So the first one is reproduction. At the end of the day, reproduction underpins everything around herd improvement. Reproduction is what gives you choice on farm. If you're only getting enough replacements to replace the cows that are leaving the herd, and whether that be just because they're empty, late calvers, or any other issue, health issues, then you don't have a lot of choice around what you can do with those replacements and then what you can also then remove from the herd. So repro is really, really important. And I understand that there will be a session specifically on repro later in the series. Then it's obviously around bulls you use. So most of the genetic gain in the national herd is driven by the bulls you use. The bulls are selected from a large population, and that selection pressure really drives herd improvement and genetic gain on farm. The cows you keep is an important one. I'm sure we've all had that situation where you have your worst performing cow come up on the first day of AI and she gets mated to a top AB bull and she will end up having a heifer calf. Now, if you can remove some of that wastage from the system and not necessarily breed from that cow, then that is going to help drive genetic gain. So the cows you keep does determine what cows are available for obviously mating. And then the final one is around calves you rear. So out of that combination of the bulls you use and the cows that are mated, what calves are actually reared and therefore what animals are actually entered into the herd as replacements. I just want to reinforce, improving herd performance is easiest when there are choices available on which calves will be retained and which cows can be culled from the herd. So if you have choice, then you have control. And if you have control, then you're able to make better genetic gain and herd improvement. So let's dive into each of those areas in a little bit more detail and really look at how can you drive herd improvement on farm? What are the levers that you have control over? And as I mentioned before, herd improvement is really around understanding the levers and how you interact with those levers and work with them together. And the thing you need to remember, if you always do what you've always done, then you're just going to travel the same road that you've traveled over the last several years. And when you think about the current average rate of genetic gain being 10 BW per cow per year, if you want to improve your herd ranking than the national population, or just in general drive genetic improvement, get better productivity, then you really need to be doing something different. So let's look at those. Those levers. So the first bit I want to touch on is around reproduction. And often this is easier said than done. And most farmers out there do, in one way or another, tend to have at some point an issue with reproduction. So it's really understanding the key drivers of reproduction and ensuring that we're getting the heifers coming in, the most fertile animals. There's the opportunity to actually bring them in a few days earlier. So hopefully giving the opportunity to cycle further. So understanding what your current situation is, and there's lots of information available in your herd record packages, as well as through the fertility focus report. And the fertility focus report is really cool because it actually has all your industry targets on there. So it's understanding where you are at the moment and what are the industry targets and what you can do to get there. So just as an example, increasing your 6-week in calf rate by 5% could potentially result in an extra 7 heifer calves. Now, if you only had enough replacements to bring in, then you don't have any choice around what replacements you actually end up keeping and bringing into the herd. But if you had extra 7 heifer calves, it gives you the ability to potentially keep those or sell out the bottom handful of calves. And every single animal that you drop out of the system will improve that rate of genetic gain. So one thing that you may need to consider around the repro, if you are just achieving your minimum replacement rate, is there an option to consider lengthening your AB to obtain more dairy replacements? Now, this is always a tough one because it's a balance between looking after your staff and your management and ease of management, but is there that opportunity to do that? Because I know by the time you probably get to your 6th or 7th week of AB, yeah, you're getting pretty tired. So it's just around how much do you want to drive this? So obviously there's that balance between practical application and the gains you can make. So as I said, repro is really important to be able to have choice. So the next one is around the bulls you use. As I previously mentioned, the bulls is where most of the genetic gain is achieved. So is there an opportunity to do a product shift or just in general look to shift your team of bulls to a more superior team of bulls? And that doesn't matter which AB company you're using. Every year, the bulls that are being presented by an AB company should in general be more superior. So it's ensuring that the bulls you're choosing or the team of bulls you're choosing aligns with your breeding goals and actually drives those breeding goals forward at a faster rate. And a perfect example from an LIC perspective is moving from your daughter-proven team to your forward-pack team. Now, the current differential between those two teams is 14 BW. So that's 7 BW represented in the resulting offspring. Now, obviously, moving from one team to another is a one-off shift, but the rates of genetic gain with the forward pack team is actually greater over time than what you get for the daughter proven. And another opportunity around the bulls you use is the sex semen. So this gives you an opportunity to replace some of the conventional semen with sex and really target getting heifer replacements from your elite cows. And if you're in a position to do so, even using sex over your yearlings, because then you're using your greatest asset and your newest genetics, which is your yearlings. So that's another opportunity. So next one's around cows you keep. So what really underpins the cows that we have in the herd is accurate records. So it's important that we have the most up-to-date information, accurate information for the cows in the herd. And so not only is this around ensuring we're recording the right information on those animals, but any opportunity to add value to them through herd testing, DNA parentage verification, weighing your animals. You know, weighing, I think, is one of the undersold value propositions around herd improvement, because we look at efficiency of our cows and it comes down to how heavy is she and what's she producing, yet we don't go and weigh our animals. So that's something for consideration in terms of how do we support accurate records through all the different products and services out there. So being in a position to hopefully cull your poor producers. Now, I know this links quite tightly with repro, and if you're having a high empty rate, then there's less opportunity to cull on your poor producers. But that's when applying some selection pressure on what cows you mate gives you the ability to potentially not stall mate from those cows. So there's an opportunity to perhaps make the bottom 10% of your animals to a beef AI rather than a dairy AI. And with all the beef products that are out there at the moment, it actually gives you a byproduct of the dairy industry in terms of having a beef dairy cross animal that we can hopefully sell into the beef industry, rather than having to actually put these animals on the bobby truck. And the opportunity, there's lots of opportunities. So that image there is just sort of showing you the percentiles grouped into 10, like so the top 10 percentile, the second, the third, the fourth. And you can see as you get to the lower end of the BW, this would be quite representative of most herds in the country. You can see when you go from the 9th percentile to the 10th, there's quite a drop off. So the greatest opportunity in terms of applying selection pressure on your herd is dropping out that bottom 10%. And hopefully you'll be in a position to do that, and having a good repro will be able to do that. And then finally, the calves you rear. So if you are able to produce or generate more replacements than you require, then that really gives you choice in the pen for selection, and whether it's a case you rear them through and sell them as in-calf heifers or get rid of them as calves, that's obviously your choice. But if you can ensure you're getting the best genetics coming into your herd, then yeah, having that opportunity to select from your calves will be great. And as I've already mentioned, mating from your yearlings is a great way to drive genetic gain. They're your newest genetics, your best genetics coming through. So there's lots of opportunity, but obviously it's not always practical. So bringing it all together, so I've just listed there all the different things that I've talked about. So improved repro, looking at the length of your mating program, you're having a look at the team of bulls that you're selecting as their opportunity to drive genetic gain with more superior bulls coming through. Sex semen is going to be one that's going to really drive genetic gain in the future as more and more customers start using that. Culling out your bottom PW cows, applying selection pressure on your mating. And this could be, your bottom 10%, your bottom 20, or even your bottom 30. And it's around how do you utilize each of these levers either independently or with each other. So if you're in a position to lengthen your mating program, apply really good selection pressure and target your bottom 30% to beef, and you're able to do that because you're mating your yearlings, then that really drives genetic gain. So it's how do you utilize these levers together for your best opportunity on farm. And in terms of just putting some numbers against it, so this is just an example we worked through from a farm in the Taranaki, which has 350 cows. And, not all of these will be done all together, but if we were just to take 4 of them, so if they were in a position to increase their repro by 5%, shift to forward pack bull team, select only progeny from your top 80% and add beef to your bottom 20%, and you're able to do that through using sex semen, that totals 27 BW. And 27 BW equates to about 7.5 kilograms of milk solids in one generation. And that's on a per animal basis. So over the national herd, if you had 400, the average herd size is 440. If you had a replacement rate of 25%, and each of those animals were more superior in terms of milk solids by 7.5 kilograms of milk solids, that equates to just under $6,000 per year return on investment for that improved genetic merit. And over a 5-year period, that equates to just under 30,000. So there's a lot of opportunity out there with the information that we have to really drive herd improvement on farm. And small gains, as I've mentioned previously, over time ends up being really profitable. So what does the future herd look like? So if we look at the national average cows now producing 385 kilograms of milk solids, and we rolled that forward 10 years at the current rate of genetic gain, the future cow in 10 years' time could be producing 444 kilograms of milk solids. Or another way of looking at that is if you had a herd of 500 cows, you'll actually only need 438 cows in 10 years' time to produce the same amount of milk solids. So it's important to acknowledge that as our cows get more genetically superior, unless we're actually adding more feed into the milking platform, we are going to have to reduce cow numbers so that we can feed our genetically superior cows. But this actually quite nicely aligns with the whole environmental issue out there and reducing cow numbers. So it's worth considering the implication of these figures on your future management system and how it will actually fit in with your goals and objectives. So just to summarize this morning, so optimizing herd improvement and breeding a better line of replacements is about understanding your records and goals, recognizing the opportunity and exploiting it. And I guarantee that every farmer out there has the opportunity to do this. Reproduction is a major contributor to herd improvement, and it is a driving factor in the ability to have choice. So it's really important that we really target in on this area. Several levers can be pulled at once to achieve your desired goals. So it's not all or nothing or just one or two. So I really encourage you to have a chat to your agri managers around what will work best with your farming system, with your goals that you have for the future. So with increasing rates of genetic gain available to the industry through the bull teams, the use of sex semen and genomics, and the knowledge of your cows, chugging along at 10 to 12 BW gains per cow per year will not be sufficient to keep pace with the rest of the industry. I challenge you in terms of, will the new norm, could it be 20 BW per cow per year? And there's already examples out there where farmers are producing more than this. So the Our Farm, this is last year with the 20 borns, achieved 30 BW between their previous year's replacements. So the question I'm going to leave with you today is, what are you going to do differently so you are not left behind?